Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Show Up with Cameron Gran. I'm Cameron Gran. If you're watching this on YouTube, you are officially now watching it on the Gran Central YouTube channel, which is at Gran_Central. That's my socials everywhere, so if you want to go follow me, that's where you can do that. Today we will be diving back into the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skills, or what I mean by that is we'll be going back into D.B.T. And the reason why I'm attaching D.E.A.R.M.A.N to this is kind of the follow-up to D.E.A.R.M.A.N. It's the next skill, which is G.I.V.E. Stands for Gentle, Interested, Validate, and an Easy Manner. I was going to do this as a reaction to something, but stuff has happened this past month, and I decided I need a little bit more me time and just talk about what's going on in my life and things I've enjoyed, because stuff's happening and it's irritating, and I could go into that and I could make myself go deep into like a funk, or I could just be like, you know what, let's not even give energy to these people. Let's just move past it, whatever. I don't need their approval. I don't need their permission, and I don't need their validation. Is validation awesome? Yeah. But does it always happen from where you want it to? No, and that's okay, because what matters is your art and how you create it and what its purpose is for other people. And if you have passion behind that, you can go as far as you want, whether or not people believe in you or not. I don't really give a crap if they believe in me, okay? This is a little bit of the bitterness coming out, and we're gonna go back and forth because I just need to get some of this energy of anger out, which is kind of attached to the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill. The D part of the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill is all about approaching somebody when things are going wrong in a relationship, whether that's family, friends, romantic partners. It's all about how do you approach them and then tell them, hey, when you do this stuff, it makes me feel this way, and I don't like that, and I need that to change. And then the man part is kind of the option phase. It's like, can we do some of these things, and like you give them ideas and things that you're okay with. An important part with the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, I did go over this a couple times when I went over with my friends. If you only watch this on YouTube, you haven't seen those videos yet, but they're coming, I swear, because they're part of season 1, but that's kind of the follow through part that I'm going to begin this episode with. But I wanted to make sure you guys knew that we're going to dive into another skill, which is G.I.V.E. Mostly because I need a reminder I am in therapy. Fingers crossed, or that it goes well, continues to go well, because it has so far. I have some things that I'm trying to work through that don't always feel like I'm moving forward. And that's kind of something that maybe, because, you know, I'm in my 20s and people are talking about how people in their 20s are now going through a quarter life crisis, because we know we are taught to think and overthink and just have so much going in our heads that if we don't reach a certain bar, which is a comparison, which I say get rid of, throw it out the window. We don't need that off the mountaintop. Don't need to have so much in our brains when it comes to comparison, which is a huge thing for me because I think so much. It is exhausting. And sometimes I'm like, why are we thinking still? Can we just give me a break? I don't even care enough about this thing, but I still can't stop thinking about it. And sometimes it drives me crazy with my friends because I feel like they don't ever think about me. This is like old stuff. I'm not bringing up things, but this is just in the past. Like, I'm just opening up about previous trauma. Usually it drives me bonkers because I'm like, why aren't they ever reaching out to me? Because all I can do in my head is think about them. People have been like, are you in love with your friends? No, I don't know why people occupy that much space in my mind. I've realized maybe it has to do with that whole validation thing I brought up a couple seconds ago, because when we seek other people out to validate us, it makes us feel like we can't validate ourselves. And listen, I can only control so much in my life. And sometimes I feel like when I get rejected from things or people tell me no, it's because of the way I look. I say that because I don't feel like it's fair. And I've called people out before about this, and they told me yes, but the reason why they eventually decided to cast me was because I called them out on that behavior. And my problem is, I'm not trying to be a romantic lead in something, but even if I was a romantic lead in something, people don't always have to look like supermodels to fall in love. A majority of humans don't, but they still manage to find love to repopulate the earth. So I just find it crazy that we have a certain ideal in the industry when acting is all about embodying somebody else's life and telling it truthfully, but truthfully, not everyone looks like what Hollywood is currently at. And so I want to be an actor and I love the film industry, but there are things that operate in it that still bother me to this day, especially when it comes to auditions, because you hear a lot of crap that you're like, you have no right to be saying this to me. If you don't want to hire me, great, but you should be like, lock your lip, tell my agent, let my agent sugarcoat it. I don't have an agent, so that's not really a validating thing for me. But like, the whole point is, if you don't want somebody for a part, I feel like you should just say, thank you for coming in. Maybe you can tell them you're not the correct thing we're looking for this part. That's fine. And then if they say why, maybe don't tell them the truthful why. It's just because I know there's the argument out there about like, oh, well, not anymore, but Simon used to be really mean on like American Idol when he judged people, and people were like, well, he tells the truth, so that it kind of wakes people up from like this narrative they have going in their head that they're more talented than they are. I saw this video where people were like, oh, the movie Wish is trying to make this guy out to be a villain, when really he's just saying that the wishes that need to be granted are the wishes that are best for the kingdom. And then they're like, I don't know why Asha gets to decide that everyone deserves to have their wishes. And that's not the point of the story, which is why I'm bringing this up, because the whole point of her story isn't even about the wishes. The whole point is if you give the king the wish, you forget your wish. You have no opportunity to work on a skill that you love so much because you forget that you even care about it. And that's her point. It's not that you have to grant every single wish. It's not that you don't have the opportunity, but when you take somebody's wish and their memory of that wish, that's why it's wrong, because you can work on a skill and develop it to where it needs to be. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Sorry, this is me, again, voicing frustrations because I am upset, but I'm not upset at myself. I'm upset because I don't understand certain things. And then there are things that I can think I'm not going to say online because I don't know semantics. I just realize, why am I stopping myself when so many people are already stopping me? A huge thing I've heard is, why would you expect other people to bet on you if you're not going to bet on yourself? I've heard this today was an example of me betting on myself and not going, but I'm not going to feel bad about myself. I'm not going to stop going. If anything, I get fuel from this because I get so angry when something feels unjust to me, but it doesn't feel right, and I don't want to go in more into it. But that's not about today. It's like other stuff has been happening that feels the same way. Like I'm switching jobs because I don't feel safe in my current job, and that was the whole reason why I got the current job, was because I was trying to find a safe environment for me to work. So I found another job, and that's why I'm leaving it. That all has to do with safety. And here's the thing that I have realized about me, and not everybody has this. We all have these trauma triggers that we've built in our lives, but people don't realize that my entire life has been an unsafe event after unsafe event. I turned into a robot so people could get away with treating me like crap, because if they got away with it, then that meant that I could still have a place to sleep. And this isn't something that happened when I was like a teenager when I could leave. This started when I was really young, so I never felt home safe. And then this is also like, oh, Cameron must be food secure because he's fat. I don't have a problem with the term fat. It's a scientific word. I have a problem with people trying to erase that this is like my identity because I am something. Like I that is one facet of my being, that there are a lot of assumptions that come with my weight. Like everyone's like, oh, he has no worry about food because he is this way. I am unhealthy because of my trauma when it comes to food. I might have food, but I have never felt like food was safe. Food has always been treated to me like something that could be taken away from me at any moment, and that I was always doing something wrong. So whenever I had food in front of me, I consumed it as quick as possible, because if I didn't, I have no clue when it was going to come back. And I'm working through this gaslighting thing that my family has did to me my entire life, because I never had a problem with sneaking food. But for some reason, somebody who didn't know me, who wanted nothing to do with me, decided that I was somebody who would go and sneak food, and that must be why I'm super fat, in their opinion. I got really upset, and then I did start developing more and more bad habits, because it makes you feel like a criminal when the food in your own house is locked up. And usually it would make sense to me if I was doing the actual thing, and you actually caught me doing the thing that you're worried about, which is binge eating or whatever. But I never did that. I ate what we were being given. And then they're like, oh, why is he always going and having what's left after everyone eats? And I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to finish the food that was made for that one meal. It's just gaslighting after gaslighting after gaslighting. And literally I'm working through that, because I'm trying to figure out, when I feel myself in my own brain, what is actually me and what is beliefs that I have because I was gaslit for so long. And this all stems back from assumptions and comparison, and feeling like because people see me in a certain light, they think I'm not capable of something. That's kind of how it's been most of my life. Give me the actual opportunity. Don't just assume something because of your own preconceived notion, because comparison is not fair to do to anybody, because you don't know actually who that person is. You're just making assumptions based on other things you've seen in media or other examples that have nothing to do with the person in front of you, but you're like, oh, this person slightly resembles of this person that I know, so they must be the same. And that's kind of the point of the, like, wrapping back to the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, is the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill is like the first time I found something that was like a clear path to telling somebody to stop. This is behavior that you're doing to me is not okay. You need to stop. If you cannot stop what you're doing, then we cannot be friends, or we cannot hang out as much. much time. We can't like be close family. We can't do any of these things. And then checking the facts is another skill that I sometimes ask people, and I'm like, why would that even come into your head? And I'm like, you don't understand that I don't trust my own thoughts because I have been told my entire life that my thoughts are wrong. And so most of my therapy is my therapist going like, hey, yeah, so you're telling yourself that what you're thinking is wrong, but when you explain the story and you actually tell me all the details of what's going on and then what you said and what you were asking for, it sounds more to me like you actually know how to handle things in a healthy manner. What's happening is you don't know how to separate or disconnect from people who don't know how to handle things in a good manner. So instead of being like, oh, they're not listening, they don't like, they're not actually trying to communicate in a healthy manner, they're just trying to be toxic, instead of being like, hey, if you can't work with me and try to like navigate through this in a healthy way of dealing with somebody, then I'm going to step back and we'll have to figure out what that looks like as we move forward. She was just like, yeah, most of what you tell me is actually what you should be doing. It sounds like you just need to actually develop a system of believing in yourself, because what you want to do is normally correct. But again, my thoughts are so much and they repeat so much and then they dive so deep into things when I don't think it needs to be that deep. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying is my quote for 2024. If anybody wants to put on a t-shirt, send me it. It's not my thing. It's a common phrase, but I don't know why that's been my thing. I've been saying a lot. I'm going to remind myself of this skill because I want this to be a D.B.T. central podcast, at least for 2 times of the month. But I'm kind of in this transitional phase of going from one apartment to the other, and now I'm going from one job to another, and then I'm trying to actually jump into believing in myself, even though it's crazy and because I've been at something for so long to feel like I'm not in like believing in myself. And so I'm kind of in like the transition period, but I'm also tired of being in the transition period. So I'm like, you know what, we need some roots. We need to make sure we plant ourselves firmly so we can go forward from here. So we're gonna start off with the gentle part of give. First off, going through this stuff can be a lot, and usually something that you have to weigh is whether or not what you're getting from somebody is actually worth the effort you're putting to keep them in your life. Believe in just cutting people out of your life. I think that if you're going to get to that extent, especially if it's been like something long term and there's been like a lot of help and love involved, it needs to be like direct and honest and you tell them the truth. But like with the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, the dear part again is you telling things that this person has done to you and how it has upset you. And the reason why gentle is part of this is because this is how you do D.E.A.R.M.A.N. And G is gentle because you want to make sure you don't have attack, you don't make any threats towards them, and you're not judging them for their decisions, and you don't sneer at anything that they say. And the reason why it's important is because before you can even start D.E.A.R.M.A.N, make sure that you're okay with losing them. And a lot of times when we're at our worst, we feel like we need other people to just be here and functioning, and that's a dangerous place to be, which you should be in therapy. And that should help you get to a state where you feel safe actually setting the boundaries that you actually need, even though you might not feel it, but you wouldn't be where you were if these people were respecting you. If they were respecting you, you wouldn't have problems. But the reason why those 4 things are important is because it's very easy, especially when people hear we need to talk, for people to shut down and feel like something's wrong. And most of the time I've realized that I'm not somebody who gets like really upset at other people. It's more of like, hey, you did this and I let you get away with it, so you kept doing it, and then I realized I should have said something because it was upsetting me. And so when you do this, you weren't aware that was upsetting me, but I'm going to make you aware because I want you to stop doing it. So hopefully by me sharing this with you, you'll stop doing it so that it isn't a thing in preventing us from having a good relationship. And that's why it's important when you're saying that, don't even attempt any kind of skill if you're in a heated place, you know? If you're angry, if you're going to, like, if you feel like you're going to shout, if you can't control your emotions at all, you should wait. Like, make sure you're in like a sense of balance, because you have to go in and be like, have enough wherewithal to hear them out, but also have enough in you to protect yourself so that you can like withdraw from the situation and go somewhere else to deal with it that's a safe place. Because while I care about somebody else's emotions and how they feel in the moment, I've realized that not everybody else, when they are angry or respond to talking, have that at all in them until like 15 minutes have gone by and then they finally realize what they started with was shouting. I start with like that at the beginning. That's because, again, having been shouted at and had a lot of traumatic things happen to me in my childhood, it takes me a long time to then like figure out how to talk to somebody, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to somebody else. And then I put up with more than I should. And my therapist has told me this, like, you put up with more than you should because you've been conditioned to do that, but you need to find that bar quicker, because it's not okay to be like, it is not okay with like how much you're putting up with, you know, like your cup can only get full so much before it cracks and then becomes no longer a viable cup to be used. The next one we're going to talk about is the I portion of give, which is act interested. I don't know why they chose to do that with putting act in front of it, but that's what it's called. But the reason why that's important is because even though you're having a conversation about what you need, you don't know somebody else's like experience. You don't know what they were thinking. You don't know their thoughts. So you have to act interested because people need to feel validated in order to validate you. This is why I hate in modern that we don't feel like we can validate somebody unless we agree with them. I can completely disagree with you. I actually follow a lot of creators that I don't agree with, and it's because when they talk and I don't agree with them, they validate the other opinion they're talking about, or they give reasons for not validating it, but usually it comes from a place of respect. I don't follow people who don't validate because I'm like, I don't need you to agree with me, but you're a human, I'm a human, and so at the very least you deserve to show me respect as a human. And that's kind of where I feel like validation has gone so badly, is because people feel like validation means you're telling somebody they're correct. You are not. You are saying, I hear what you're saying, and I got that from that encounter you got upset, and I am sorry that was your takeaway, because my intention when I said that stuff was not to upset you. I was just trying to be very forward with what the expectations were. I didn't mean to say it in a way that upset you. I was trying to just like for instance, games can sometimes get this way because again, me, safety minded, I need rules to make sure that everyone's following them so nobody gets hurt, because if safety goes away, Cameron goes cray-cray. The idea of somebody hurting themselves upsets me so much that sometimes, even though I'm not angry, my anger quotient will go from a 1 to a 10 and I'll start shouting. And then they're like, why are you shouting at me? You're so aggressive. And I'm like, listen, safety is something that you cannot mess with in the environment. Otherwise, I can't control my emotions. It's like, it's an instinct so it's harder to stay in a state of listening and like trying to come up with a compromise if I don't feel safe, because I want you to feel safe, but I want to make sure I feel safe because it's an even playing field. Oh, well, good thing I was talking about validation, because the V part of give is validation. And this can be hard, especially when the person you're talking to are saying their thoughts and you're not and when they're saying what they are hearing you say, it's not correct. Like you just explained your problem and then they're repeating it back to you and nothing of what what they're telling you they heard is what you said. That's when it's hard, because it's like it takes a little bit more navigation and more of like a rowboat across a river, because you kind of are like trying to battle through rapids to get to the actual smooth part of the river where you guys can both sit in your canoes and have like an even chat with no like loud noisy water getting in the middle of the conversation. I know, poetic. I know, I'm so amazing at that. But the reason why I'm gonna again dive into validation a little bit more is because if you hurt somebody's feeling, why can't you say sorry? I've hurt somebody's feelings before and I have completely disagreed with what upset them, but I can see a human being suffering and pain in front of me and I can feel sorry about that reality, which is why it's different from apologizing, because this isn't what like necessarily an apology. Validation is not what I'm talking about. It's a kind of a recognition, not recognition, that's not a word. It's a recognition of the other person. It's kind of like, hey, I know I said a lot when I was asking for these things. We're in the man part, which is kind of the compromising between the two of us. Before we can go forward and figure out how we can both do something for this relationship to be better, is there something that you need to talk to me about? Because that's kind of something that I've had to do a lot, is I'm like, listen, once this conversation's over, I've told you everything that's wrong and you're saying you understand, but I have been talking the most. I am one person in a two-person group. You can't actually have success if only 50% of a two-person group is happy. You need a full 100%. So, or at least over 50%. So like a 70, 80%. 80% is probably more preferable, but you need like a higher number of success or happiness before you can move away from the conversation, in my opinion. That's why I always stop and I'm like, hey, I've voiced what was upsetting me. I don't know what's going on in your life. You're not somebody who likes to talk as much as me. You're not somebody who likes to dive in deep. I don't want to be the person who's making you dive deeper into your psyche than you feel comfortable with. I do want this to be the last time we talk about this. So if this is the last time we talk about what I brought up, for us both to move on, is there something you're holding back that you need or that you feel is unrealistic that I've asked for? Because I need to know that, because you also matter. Like, I'm upset, but also I need to know your takeaway so that when we come up with a compromise and what we can do for the man part of the skill, we're working on a relationship to be better. I want to make sure that we're both agreeing on the man part. If there's a compromise to be had, it can't be you giving me everything I want. I mean, if you're capable of that, that's an ideal, but the best outcome of this would be a win-win situation. So we both win in this scenario. Easy manner is the E part of give. People feel like they're getting attacked. They will not hear a single word that you've uttered. When we are in fight or flight, we are quickly assessing a situation whether or not we need to shut down, which is the third option nobody considered. We need to flee or we need to fight the person. But me, I am the shut down. Like, I flee, but I don't move my body to get away from the bad situation. I recede into myself and disappear. But that's not a great way if you want suffering to end quickly, because usually that means you're just listening to somebody be hostile to you for no reason. That's not an okay thing to do, but that's usually another option people forget is freeze is also recede or not do anything, but it's a survival mechanism for like becoming as small as possible so the other person kind of forgets that they're threatened by you so you have time to escape. I did that a lot growing up because I had no one looking out for me, and then the people that I thought would look out for me because I'm the youngest child were my older sisters, but I would constantly find myself trying to go to them and then tell them what was happening, and either get ignored, or there were times where the people bullying me were my sister's friends. Sometimes they told me that my sister is the one who sent them over, but that's sibling rivalry, so there's a whole other thing. Also, my family history, so let's not use me as an ideal example for this. Easy manner is important, and a lot of times once you've finished the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, like once you've if somebody tells you no, they can't do that, if somebody tells you yes, they can, I always say leave it with the intention of a check-in and say, hey, you said you can do this. Let's agree that in a month's time, let's reassess how we're feeling about what was the expectations were, whether or not in that month we recognize anything actually changing. Please, please, please go off of what the other person is telling you, not what you think. Thoughts are not change, because thoughts are for you, behavior is for others, actions are for others. It's amazing how many people, when I talk to them, try to use thinking as an excuse for doing what I want, but you do realize the whole problem why we're here is because I can't read your mind. If I could read your mind and I could hear all the things that you say that you think about me, then I wouldn't need these other things to feel validated or heard or as a part of a friend group or family, or all the things I say all the time when I'm going over this. Effort without any validation can feel like wasted effort. It's important, if we think we're trying something, to say, hey, let's talk in a month's time, and then we can see whether or not what we did actually was recognized, because maybe we need to go further, or maybe if the choice is we must go super, super further, then maybe it's just not something we're capable of doing. And that's okay if that's the truth. Just make sure that you tell the person, don't lie. What is with people lying? Just tell them the truth. It's okay. If you can't give somebody more when they're talking to you, tell them the truth. It hurts me as a person less knowing, oh, this is all they're capable of. When I'm seeking from somebody, they're not able to give. So I need to change who I go to for this. I need to adapt the man part of what we agreed on, so that way we're both still getting what we want and we're getting what we need, and we are accepting the reality we're in. We're not accepting the magical version of the world out there, because I'm careful with what I say to other people because I know my own capabilities. So I'm careful with what I say and what I promise, because thoughts have a way of sounding good in the moment, but then you realize as you're trying to give that or do that for somebody else that it's too much for you mentally, and that's okay. Just communicate. Communication is the key part to all of this. The give skill is a good thing for other people, but I also feel like it might be a good idea to do a check-in with somebody that you're using the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill with, but also maybe sitting down and doing the give skill, the check-in to yourself, because it is important to remind yourself to be gentle to ourselves, to act interested in what's going on with us, because sometimes people put themselves after other people, and usually that means they ignore things that are going on for other people's happiness. But everybody should be happy in a given setting, and if they're not, something's wrong. And then you need to validate your feelings. I have a terrible habit of apologizing to people who don't deserve to be apologized to. I say that because that's part of the invisibility. I apologize because if people think that I'm telling them that they're right and I apologize for being wrong, they'll leave me alone, so I make out of a scenario alive. Why am I so worried about being killed by other people? I don't know. Everyone's scared of death, but not everyone makes it the core for everything. But safety usually is in response to that fear. I got into like my therapist needs to help me with that kind of stuff. But like validation is important to give to other people, but it's also important to validate yourself, especially if you're dealing with gaslighters. People who gaslight will constantly make you question your reality. But if you go in before you talk to them, make sure you're like, this is the reality, this is the truth. I know this, I know this, I know this. I will talk to them. I will try to compromise, but they will not push me out of my reality to believe theirs. Their reality is not more important than my reality because we live on the same earth. This isn't everything everywhere all at once. We can't just jump into somebody else's reality. I don't control this reality. We all cohabit it. So co-inhabit it, I don't know how you say it. Because of that, you need to make sure that we are all coexisting. We can be different. We can have different values. We can have different tiers of what we value. Like I value what you value, but that's lower on my list of values, so I don't care as much. And then easy manner is because when you are dealing with gaslighters and you're telling them no, just remember to pause, breathe, and just be like, it's okay. Whatever they're saying might be upsetting, but you know it's the truth. It's okay. Don't question it. Don't shame yourself. Be like, maybe they are right. Maybe I am just a piece of crap or things like that. Because that's like, those are all bad thoughts. I used to have a term for that, bad thoughts, but thoughts that we just start summoning out of thin air to justify bad behavior. Or we're like, oh, my friend treats me like this, so I must be a crap human. Not the fact that your friend's treatment might just be crap and they need to stop, but they must be justified. It is crazy to me because I don't like being gaslit. How much of my time is spent gaslighting myself? Because I'm like, well, I must be this because they wouldn't do this if I wasn't this, you know? It's like we fall into these what ifs and like they must, like these, I should be doing this, another judgment statement. Whereas if we just started making I am statements, like I am feeling sad. Why am I feeling sad? Going to the truth. Because also trauma is the thing. Somebody going through the same thing that you are might not get what you get out of something. Somebody might not have the same fear of, you know, going over a railing near a cliff where you could fall and die. So they risk themselves and you're like, no, I'm responsible because I care about you. That's too much. Stop doing that. I don't want to be responsible for that. You're putting me in a bad situation. Get away from there. That is when I go cuckoo. Because I don't want that responsibility. I don't want to feel like I put somebody else at risk of injury. I want everybody to be safe, to be careful, especially because this was on a set like that I knew people and I didn't ask them to do this. They just volunteered. I was like, what are you doing? That is so dangerous. I can't come after you. I barely got up here to begin with. I know the reality of my body. I know what I am and I'm not capable of. That's why I don't ask people to do things that I'm not capable of. I'm not going to ask you to do something that you can't do. If I can't do it, that's ludicrous. The point I'm making in this video today is that I've been questioning my reality so much, it's exhausting. And then the things I want, I'm questioning. And so then it's like, how do I find motivation when everything feels like it's going wrong? And when I put myself out there, I'm just getting rejected. So I feel it's like, what's the point? And those kind of thoughts can be dangerous, especially when they add up. And then that's why G.I.V.E is so important, because I realized I'm being really hard on myself. And something I've also realized is I usually can catch my brain when it's comparing myself to others. Sometimes I'm like, why am I living so much through things like these other people? Like I live so much vicariously through other things. It kind of scares me sometimes because time will slip by and I'll have like these list of things I want to get done, but I won't do them because I will get sucked into other things that don't matter in the long run. Obviously, I choose to do things that are vital, which is make money to pay my rent, make sure that I have a roof over my house, because being homeless is also a fear I've always had. Food insecurity is a thing I've always had. And usually food is the worst for me. Let's just talk about that for a second because I just want to make people understand. It upsets me when somebody looks at somebody who is bigger and they're homeless and they'll go and give like money for somebody asking for food for somebody who is thin. But I've heard so much people talk crap about somebody who is homeless because they happen to be big. And I know what it's like to be food insecure, because even though my family had access to food, they made me believe that it was something that rarely came. And whether or not that was true, as a child, we're taught to believe the adults in our life. So I don't know what was true and what was not. But for me, the reason why I don't eat correctly, and what I've realized is that it's because I don't trust that there's food at home, or that I also don't trust that I have access to the food at home. It's cheaper to eat at home. It's like to meal prep and do all those things than eating out. It is, especially because food's going up, inflation, and those are all real thoughts. But I realized that for me, I wanted access to a kitchen, but for me to work in a kitchen, I can't feel like there's a hindrance at all, and people don't understand that because they're like, oh, well, I just left got this stuff in here. And if like I can handle a couple of hours or like a day, but if it's never ending, not like always, I can't deal with having to like beg somebody to clear enough space for me to cook. It's happened with friends, it happened with family, and they don't understand. It's like I go and I eat out because that's guaranteed food. At least for now, we don't know. Food insecurity, maybe that will go away. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully it won't. That could be an irrational thought. It might never go away. But that kind of my point is I don't feel safe cooking at home, so I don't cook or eat at home. And now that I am living by myself, I want to work through that, and I want to push myself to 1, cook more, 2, do meal prep so I can save money, but 3, work through why I feel that way when it comes to food. Because those people that did that to me have not talked to me since my father passed away, and the other person kind of also passed away. But that was for other reasons, because she was just like the person that brought somebody into my life that was constantly commenting about it. To be transparent, my problem with my weight is purely soda. I am working towards cutting that out. I'm working toward like reducing my sugar intake, all those things. Like I'm working towards it. But people, a thing that is always assumed about me is that I eat a lot. I don't eat a lot. I mostly don't eat. And then when I do eat, finally, it's binge eating. But I've gone days without eating before. And then I binge eat. And that's a lot of food in one sitting. I'll give you that. But that's why it's a problem. You shouldn't binge eat. You're supposed to like give your body nutrients every day, because then your body feels like it's safe enough to release what it's storing. And if it doesn't feel like it's safe to release what it's storing, it gets stored as fat. That's my issue. Also, soda kind of increases your sodium, so you retain like water. I'm trying to drink more water so I can release some of that. And these are all changes that I'm making because of the accident I was in 2022. These are my goals for 2024. As we go into the end of this podcast, the thing I want to state was my intention to cut out all entertainment for entertainment's sake. And by that, I mean mostly video. Like if I can watch something in a video, so it's something active for my channel, I will still do it. But the reason why I want to cut out entertainment for entertainment's sake is because so much of my time is spent doing stuff that is not helping me in the long run. It's holding me back, and it's me living vicariously through something when I'd rather be acting and doing that thing for somebody else to watch. I don't think it's bad to have an escape in television. It's not bad to be entertained. None of that is bad. It's just that I am doing it to a degree that is unhealthy. And I realized I don't know who I am without it. Because what if in Minnesota they had a power outage and all the internet went away? Sometimes people have gone out without power for a week. What would I do? And what if it's the kind of power outage where it also takes out the cellular tower, so you can't rely on cellular internet either? You can't rely on cellular internet either. Gosh, that's a mouthful. I love book and I love reading, and I also really want to go through everything and figure out what is actually stuff that I'm keeping for me and what is stuff that I feel like I'm holding on for something that has been lost a long time ago. It's kind of like a media breakdown, kind of Mary Kondoing my like media, where I'm like, I do intend to watch things. It's just I don't want it to do it for entertainment. I want to do it for an active like thing I'm seeking out. And so one of the things is I have a whole bunch of movies, but why do I still have them? Because my whole thing with anything in somebody's house is this one thing. If I'm holding on to a book, if I'm holding on to a movie, is the movie something that I will ever watch again? Is this a movie that is so good that me being like, hey, you should borrow this movie because it's really good and I want you to watch it. So it's like a bonding thing between me and another friend. Or same thing with a book. I want to do the same thing with my books, where I read everything that I've had, because is my library a collection of things that actually are a reflection of me? Or is it just me holding on to books that I was given because other people didn't want them? And it's not that there's a problem with holding on to books, but like to me, I want a library in my house when I have my own house. But I don't like people having a library that's just like book. Because the difference between a public library and your library is I feel like everything in your house, your books, is a reflection of your life. And so I love going to somebody's house and borrowing a book, and then after reading it and talking about the book with each other, they're telling me what was going on in their life at that time and why it was important enough for them to keep it. And that's kind of what I like about my stuff, is I want it to be a reflection that if somebody asks me what this is for and why I have it, I can tell them. And like obviously time passes, things might age well, they might age badly, but the whole point is to encapsulate my life and what my interests are. And if I don't have joy from this thing anymore, then I need to get rid of it. Because that might be a minimalistic attitude, but it's also, again, insecurity, safety. I don't feel house safe. I have an apartment. I don't feel safe from it. It could be just an insecurity left over from my childhood, but that's kind of it, is like other people feel very secure in their home. I don't have that. Any security that you could feel in your home was ripped away from me as a child. And I'm trying to get that back, but it's hard to feel safe in one place. I feel safer traveling and moving and like going through like journeys of like on the road and stuff than I feel at home, because home was never safe for me. I got bullied at school and then you think that when you get home it's safe, but it was just as bad for me at home. And so like my only escape was my books, was my movies, and that's good when you're going through the big things. And that's why I'm saying this to you as not like a hard all rule. I've talked to you guys about the peak before. It's a wave, and if I'm at the peak of the wave over this threshold, I will watch a movie for entertainment, because if you're over the peak, if you're in the red hot zone, you need to do what you need to do to make sure that you are safe, that you can come back to normal when you start actually handling everything again. But my goal is not to be in the red hot zone every single day. I don't want to make that like, oh, let's go to the red hot zone, because then it becomes meaningless. It has to be a real thing. Like, do you need this? What can we do instead? How can we work on ourselves? How can we work on our channel? How can we progress? What do we need to do for ourselves? And that's an important thing that I need in my life. And I hope other people understand that. And I guess it's January, so maybe that's my resolution. Is I have some movies that I already know that these are my picks for 2024. I have not seen a trailer. I don't know if this is confirmed, but I know that one movie, no matter what I'm seeing, and this is because this is a movie that was an escape for me, but it was also a movie where I fell in love with animation, and it inspired me to go into film. And I'm in I'm in a school for animation and film and CGI, but it's all part of like how much I love this movie, and that's Kung Fu Panda 4. That's March. February is the shortest month, but that's one movie, and then the next one isn't even till December. If they actually are releasing Avatar 3, I'll watch that in December. If they don't release it, then I don't need to watch another thing until 2025. Now again, I could rent these movies and they could be something I watch at home. If I do that, it would be something active on my channel, because that's the whole point of what I'm making. Is I don't want to passive watch anything, because if I'm passively watching it, time is escaping. Part of being present is it's kind of like if you're standing still on a beach, you want to be present so you don't recognize that the water's on you when it's all like knee high. If you're present, you'll notice the water coming over the beach, and when it starts touching your toes and it starts sweeping over, and you'll feel all the sensation of that water coursing through your toes and like going past your knees and stuff if it's that high. But it's like that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is I'm okay with escapism, but I want to make sure that I find where I am and where I need to be to remain present when all this has happened, so I'm not always distracted. Also, I just remembered another movie, Dune 2. That's the other movie. Those three movies are the only ones, because I am not a high sci-fi film. Like, I don't like high sci-fi. That just means that it requires a lot of knowledge of science normally in high sci-fi, so that's normally why I avoid it, because I'm not really a science person. But I really love the first part of Dune, and so that's literally all I have planned for this coming year is Kung Fu Panda 4, Dune 2, and then obviously, Avatar 3. I'm only planning to do this for 2024, but that's because I wanted to know my baseline of what I need to be doing so that I earn the entertainment. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't taught to like work to a certain degree before finding entertainment. I was kind of just allowed to have entertainment no matter how long I wanted it, and I'm trying to find my limit. That's it for this episode of Show Up with Cameron Gran. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. The give part of the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, which is the after you've done the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, give is so helpful. Just navigating people and how to like stay yourself and find true resolution to what's going on in your life. So if you have tried the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill, I would recommend going over this and doing maybe the give part with the check-in. But if you haven't done the D.E.A.R.M.A.N skill yet with somebody, definitely go over the give part and then like go over D.E.A.R.M.A.N with them, because that's kind of what I did. Is I wrote down in a journal what I needed from somebody, and then I was like, okay, how do I ask this of them? How can I be gentle? How can I be interested in what they're saying even though I really need this stuff? How can I validate them without like disvaluing my own needs? How can I make sure that they're hearing this without feeling judged? That's it for Show Up with Cameron Gran. You can follow me again on any social platform at Gran_Central. That's new home for Show Up with Cameron Gran season 2. Hopefully you guys enjoy. I love seeing the likes and comments. If these help you, I love responding when I see them, and I love just knowing that it helps anybody out there. So I appreciate whoever was watching these. If you're listening to this in a podcast, if you leave a review, it really helps me get seen by other people who might need to see this, instead of sharing the videos to anybody you want. I appreciate any effort. It helps with basically anything. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much, and bye-bye.